I'm Martin, as you see, other way around. It's a younger picture, younger myself. I'm with OWASP for, I'm not so used to be static. I'm with OWASP for so long, since 2006. I've been a chapter since 2007. I've been on a chapter board globally. I do a lot of abstract stuff, whatever. So, SAST, DAST, IAST, Demystify. Because I hear everything, and I hear a lot of them, and that people don't know what they're actually talking about, right? It's like the real life. This one I had once when I talked to an auditor from the Netherlands Bank. So they were auditing us, and they had, this department is starting with static application security testing. They said, oh, you have to tell the auditor what we are doing for great stuff. So I tried to tell him what we are doing, and I made a mistake. I said the word code. And the auditor is like, gone. So I talking to him what we do, explaining the whole high-graded process about static code analysis in the development phase. In the end he says, good code in, bad code out. No, unfortunately. And I hear that now people think with ChatGPT and AI and ML and whatever, it would be perfect, right? Yes, in theory, it would be perfect, yes, but is it feasible? Yeah, you know it, AI learns on samples, so the samples have to be perfect to create perfect code. There's already the first problem. So unfortunately, whatever you do as SAST application security testing, no, we cannot yet at least take bad code in and good code out. So what can we do? The first is to understand what is a building, what is your source code. And I think what works best for me to explain it to other people is thinking about a building. Because most people know what a building is, right? You have your physical walls, and you have the blueprint. And those are a technical side, maybe. Right? You know, what, for example, what application server you're using. And when you're a developer, you know when somebody gets a problem or functionality, how he or she might have solved this problem. And then you have the functional side. And the functional side is also the movement in an application, right? It's who can access which part, when, why, and how, and where are the bypasses? Are these walls around us, are the physical walls? And I don't mean this physical, my English, my word, physical. I really mean it in the real world, because yes, that's a wall, but sometimes it's just a temporary wall, right? That's not in the blueprint. So the difference is like how solid are the walls and how easy is to bypass are the security measures. That's to understand the application security. Understanding application and software. So you have your technical limitation and your functional abilities. And you have to test all of them. Then you are in an environment that you have source code, right? You write your application. But your application, the source code you write, except of this hello world, and even the hello world is depending on dependencies and outside source code. Because when you write a Java program, you're laying on the Java framework, right? When you write .NET, yes, .NET framework, you always have dependencies. And the smallest dependency is to make language happen. And the further you actually scope out, then you see, yes, the application runs in an environment, runs on a system, runs in a SaaS service, and talks to other things. So where is your security testing? What are you testing? Does it make sense to test it on how far you want to go? And the thing is, very easily, you want to go everywhere, right? But we don't have the time and money to do that. So the best security testing tool, I once said, is the one between your ears. Which one is that? Your brain, right? Manual testing, it's getting less and less. I hear that I talk normally about tool-driven tests and tool-supported tests. When you do a secure code review and you use a tool for your manual code review, then you have a tool support test. Nobody can, and I had it once in a test, they said, oh, how much hours do I need for this application? So it depends on what you want to know. In military, when they write, they have software for weapons, and weapons are made to kill people, so something can go wrong, people will die. But then the wrong people die. So they have actually, for 1 hour of development, 2 hours of manual code review. But I think in your environment, that will not be feasible, right? So now we have a tool-driven test. So we're using tools to eliminate those vulnerabilities as far as we can on the cheapest way we can. and with the least disruption in the software development process. So look into it. This is just what I said. We can learn from the outside. And how many of you are developers? Who is a security professional? Oh, so developers outnumbered. Who is both? Very few. Not a unicorn. Because I have seen that when I talk to CISOs, most of the time they come more from the process side, right? They have been process whatever people, and they know the checklist. And when I talk to security professionals, most of them cannot develop. I say, do you have development experience? They say, oh yes, I have development experience. They say, oh yeah, when? Say, when I was studying, I did a program. It's like, okay, you forget about it. That doesn't work. So that means that you cannot talk to developers. And it's very easy to spot a mistake, because the only thing a security professional has to do is find a mistake. He doesn't have to understand the whole complexity of everything that works. I had one security test, an external test for an application my company was using, as a company I worked for back then. And the security people said in the summary, this application is not built with security in mind, total rebuild required. I said, idiots. Sorry to be frank. You know it's a .NET application. We have some xSS and some privilege escalation. When I use the right frameworks, it takes me about 150 to 200 hours to fix it. The application functionality has been developed over years. It was a SAST solution. So you want to throw away thousands of hours for development because of 200 hours of software security fix. Doesn't really logic to me, right? That's what we have to understand. Okay, so we can learn from outside. And outside is, we can look in the industry. My background comes from the industry. And then we have also quality testing. And in the beginning, when I was doing security, I was like, oh, security and quality is not the same. I get older, you get gray hair, and you realize I was an idiot. Because it is the same. You have findings, you have a process to solve it. When you look at quality, we can learn from the industry because they have the same problem. You build something, you ship it, and if it's broken outside, it's very expensive to pay all the people who are hurt, right? But they are likely they can insure it. But what they do, they have a quality gate on all that comes in. They have quality measures to when they build or construct, and they have the quality verification when they leave the area. And not everybody does it right. I once had a quality manager in a production area, and we had, I think, 30 cages of products. In every cage there was 20 bags with thousands of the products. He looked at it. Can you remove 6 bags? I said, if I physically can do that? Yes. Why? In the report it says we have 1.2% of waste that's Ausfall, don't know the English word, of not good products. So 3 bags are that's 1.2%. Do you really think that all those broken products are in these 3 bags? This is not how statistics works, right? The same for us. So we have to understand how we do our control in place, not to disrupt, but to enable production. We are production companies, right? Our production is software. So how are we going to do it? First thing, what I miss many times is one dashboard, one common truth. If it's a CEO, it's a CIO, it's a test manager, it's a developer. We need one source of information. The best is real-time information and not PDFs. I have seen this software development department on one side, the security department, whoever knows where they are, to do the security magic, some room of working from home. And they do the security magic, you pay a lot of money, what you get? A PDF. I mean, you're lucky, and you pay extra, you get an explanation. Doesn't work, right? So we have to understand, we have our build pipeline, we have our development pipeline. So what you need is to understand where can we work on it. And so we have to come to a proof release, right? We have one thing that we release, we have to be sure it's as good as it can be before it goes out. It cannot be perfect. We don't live in a perfect world, right? But it can be as good as we can. That means we have an approval period. So we can say, that's our release. We have all done all the depth testing. So we can start with the approved version. But guess what? The other yellow bricks are already working because you don't start, oh, now it's done. Now we start with a new project. No, you continuous development, right? CI/CD. So you already have developed bits. And you have to trace back the bits that has been found and solved in this new release. This is the process complexity you have to deal with. We're not making a car, we get products and then we put it together, then we ship the car. Yes, but the product's already done, right? And when the starter engine is mounted to the engine block, it's a bit late to find out that it doesn't work when you try to put the engine in the car, right? And that's the same thing. You have all this different level and earliness of when is the right time to do what validation. Okay, let me try to explain what I think is the best way to do it. The first thing where you can prevent bugs, when is that? I'm both 50, you have to be louder. Before you type. When you think about it, right? Gary McGraw, he's even older than I am. He said we have bugs and flaws. Have you heard about that? Or bugs are technical vulnerabilities and flaws are functional vulnerabilities. And he said it's about 50-50. That means that 50% of all security issues you can prevent before you write one line of code just because you thought about security, right? So first thing is to think about it, and then you write code. For developers, how many of the developers do test-driven development? Is this still a thing? Pain in my heart. Because it's good, because you think first, what the code has to do before you develop it. And you know when the test case is good, is green, you have written enough code. And you're not doing test-driven development. Oh, maybe they also wanted this and they wanted something else as well, and maybe in the future they want this feature too. And then your code grows. We know more code is more bugs. With test-driven development, you limit the code, definitely you limit the bugs. Anyhow, so the first thing you can do is think about it. The second thing is when you type, right, what he said. But then when you type, you have to be able to type. You cannot type and then, like working on a remote station, this remote interfaces in the past, you write, then you have to wait for the text appearing on the screen, then you type again and then the text appears. That doesn't want to work. It's frustrating. I tried it once. That's the reason why I have a very solid keyboard. Yeah. So the next step is when you write code. You want to have early, quick feedback when you write code. That's the first thing you can have. And there are tools for it. There are different tools, plugins, because that's perfect. That's in the environment where your developer works. In the IDE. He has one interface in his world, right? This is the monitor. This is his world. The rest doesn't exist. And the keyboard is his interface to the world. When he types code, you can see the compiler already these days, luckily, the compiler says, hey, this line is red line, does not compile, or will not compile because he has not even compiled yet. The same we can do for security. But when you check it, commit to repo, you have more than one file, maybe you have a test case or a functionality unit, you have more context. So when you check it in, that's what you call a coffee test. Because it should not be quick and dirty, it should be a bit deeper. And coffee test, because you said submit, then you go for coffee, and when you come back, and hopefully your coffee is good and doesn't take too long to get a coffee, you have results. You know, in this bigger context, is there any mistake? And then the next level, of course, is when everything the nightly builds is triggered, and then on the end, you have your release, you have the full-blown test and everything, and of course not once, but several times, and you know that it's good enough. Yeah? So everything that you can automate in it, all the SAST abilities, they have their benefits and they have their downsides. Of course, we should start not with SAST, but with SCA, Software Composition Analysis. It has been a big thing ever since the American president says, you have to do that. Isn't that great? I want to be president. I want to be king. So he said, you have to have an SBOM. Who knows what the SBOM is? Who doesn't know what the SBOM is? It's a software bill of material. Again, that's what we look for. Your products you buy or your food, it tells you on the etiquette what is this made of. All the dependencies, the third-party libraries. Because then it's not only where it comes from, but also which version. We know on the NVIDIA, National Vulnerability Database, which libraries, which vulnerabilities are found, if they are reported. So you need an SBOM. So I get this application, but I want to know what this application is made of, not only your code. Yes, please?
I have a question. So I'm not a developer, but we have SCA, and then lots of times you see all these vulnerabilities. And then I go to the developer and he says, yeah, but it's an external library. You can't update.
That's a problem. So it says, oh yeah, but external. Yes, but you can always think about, let's be a supply chain cleanliness, and this term has Josh Corman founded by Ian Curry. So when you have a dependency, how do you choose dependency? And of course, the most developers are younger, definitely younger than I am, on average. And we need young people that are driven. It's this new cool framework, we all have to use it. It's like, we go, look, there's a cliff, let's jump from it. And when you're older, say, okay, good, but not all at once, you first. Yeah, it's good to have it, but you look at it, and then look in this external framework, what is the version? 0.4 version for your production environment? How living is this project, right? The source, did they fix the bugs? These days with GitHub and GitLab, we can see how alive the community, the people behind it is. I think we all know the xKCD with this big pile of dependencies, and then there's the one developer in Nebraska, right? This is one thing, dependency. And that actually happened with Log4j, and I really pity the guy because he really does his best. But this is indeed a problem. So first thing is, when you want to depend on the library, how did you choose your library? I said, supply chain cleanliness. Maybe you should not just have, hey, this cool library I found on the internet. I don't know what it does, but hey, it does what I want. And maybe a bit more, because the library is not written for one task, but written for more. Yeah? So look at which version are the known vulnerabilities. Does it do what you need it to do? And what does it more than you want it to do? Because you also input functionality you might not want. Yeah? So be careful choosing your libraries. And then there are tools, they're looking in the licenses, because, nobody looks at licenses. May I use this for commercial use? Not thought about that. And then, of course, it's a maintained as well, then other known vulnerabilities, how easy to fix it. And I heard many times, you don't use the latest library version as a vulnerability, as a risk. Yeah, but this one is safe. But the newest, you don't know yet because it hasn't changed. And the other side is when you're not upgrading in time, definitely on your server dependencies, just upgrade, hopefully, if you're not Java and your version numbering is okay, then 0.1 to 0.2 is okay. But when you have a full number upgrade, it's harder. When you have to upgrade from version 4 to version 10x, that can be cumbersome, right? The same for the dependencies. Yeah. Keep them updated. It's important because the changes might be slower, smaller. Yeah. So yeah, the problem is exploitability. Yeah, you have the theory. We know there's a vulnerability in it, but how to prove it? And this is scientific paper on the vulnerability, but is it actually a problem in your code? How you use it? That's what we heard many times in that they say, yes, but it's a bug in that part of functionality I don't use. Yeah, but you import the library, you don't use the functionality yet. Maybe use it later on. So you have to think about it. So we call it hall or depth analysis, because the framework, the library of a library, is not a problem again. Yeah? Of course, they are good because of the coverage. So you have the whole framework, you have the library. The visibility of the code, because it's open source library, hopefully, when you talk TPC, but you also have closed source libraries. And then, of course, you have the problem, you import a library from a proprietary software, you're not allowed to scan it. Suddenly, or can you demand a scan report from them when it's a paid library? Yeah? So the first thing, look what this software is built of. I have seen POM files or build files where they just say latest. At least it is better than to have an old version in it, because whoever updates their build files. Oh no, that's how I start my project. I always need a log and I always need this, so it's already in there. So yeah, but you haven't updated the library's version the last 3 years. Huh? Oh, 3 years already. That's how it works. Yeah. So first thing is to look in dependency externally what you have. And there are tools for that, not only the software has known vulnerabilities, but also the license version. The next step is looking at the static application security testing and looking at the source code. And actually you look more than the source code, because all the files that make the application. In the good old times when you have web applications, we had a web XML, right? It's the first thing you can use. But you can also now test, import, and understand all this SCA problem, SAST tooling doing that, is when you give in the build file, because then they already see what library is in there and its availability, and the configuration files also understand. These days we have software as a service, software as code, or hardware as a code. That means there are not hardware as a code, there are configuration files, how you want to have your cloud service configured. Some people say software has a grammar, therefore it's not the software. I don't care. We are files, they are submitted, therefore we can validate if they are written well, if need or not, or if there's something is done well or something is forgotten, right? So this SCA is where you see everything. And there was this question about SQL injection, right? This is the thing, we have in some vulnerabilities you find better in when you look at the source code. For example, SQL injection, because I can see it's not only grabbing from do you use any functionality, they interpret it and they look at state machine diagrams. Where is information coming in? Where does it goes out? Can it be tainted? Can it be manipulated? Did you write your prepared statement with placeholders or not? That is what the static application security testing can do, right? Dynamic has another problem because they can have not all the source code, but they know the dynamic context of the application, where static has to do predictions, for example, in cross-site scripting, because is there a problem or not? Maybe the countermeasure has been outside of the source code, but in the deployment. When you use Nginx server, they have a kind of a cross-site scripting protection mechanism already in the application server, right? So you still have the finding that we call the false positive. It's not relevant finding. Yes, it's a finding, but the countermeasure is outside of the source code, outside of the application. Yeah. So DAST looks at the deployed application, what we just heard from Amit. So I don't go to DAST too deep, but in SAST you have to understand the technology. In DAST you have to understand the protocols. Yeah. So when you do a Java static code review, it doesn't help you if you know PHP. You have to understand Java. For this, you have to understand HTML and HTTP, how it works. And yes, there are DAST applications, they do single page, because in DAST, you are impersonating the browser. So all those browser libraries, you load in. And I heard somebody saying already about a runtime SBOM. I don't want to mention any name or company. And they said, yeah, SBOM is good, but you don't know runtime SBOM because all the libraries that you actually use when you run an application that are imported, that also changes the configuration, right? So what the browser, which JavaScript library they are loading underwater to make the application working. And then DAST tool, because it mimics the browser, it gets the information, and you can verify what you have imported and what quality are the non-vulnerabilities. Yeah? Going on, then there's IAST. We talked about it as well. So what is the difference between DAST and IAST? Because IAST means interactive. But dynamic was already interactive because I do a request and I get a response. The thing is that you have pre-configured test cases. And the most important thing, what is left alone, you have the active and passive IAST. And one is that you have actually an agent on the server side that monitors the runtime of your application and can see what's happening. So the problem that you said, when you have a DAST vulnerability, which line of code it is, by IAST can find it. But the problem is, how many technologies are supported? Many Java and .NET. For the others, it's like, interesting. I haven't thought about that yet. Of course, I thought about that, but implementation, right? You need a runtime environment to monitor runtime. If you have no runtime, you have no runtime environment. So IAST, I have seen that the hybrid developers say, forget SAST and DAST, let's go IAST. If your SAST and DAST is not on a high quality level, forget about IAST. It's like you haven't learned to crawl and walk yet, but you want to start running. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah? So IAST is just the next level, next step. As would say, hey, let's start Chaos Monkey testing. You know this Chaos Monkey? Yes. But that's not how you start Chaos Monkey full-blown in production. That's not the starting point, right? That's a goal that you might reach. There's another nice thing now these days. We call it OWASP, out-of-band application security testing. Because not everything with this interface and APIs, it's in your application context. For example, multi-factor authentication, right? So your DAST, how can your DAST server or DAST application tester do the authentication part? Or how does it, when I do my booking or my trip and I go to the payment portal, I have to come back to the booking. A DAST, typical DAST engine is not really happy about it. And these days it's out of bound. You look if you have other indications, or you can go to different channels. And also I heard somebody already saying about FAST, this functional application security testing. I heard about it. So you have then the test scripts. You keep not the whole application, because every time testing, that's the problem with DAST. Where is your scope, right? What do you test? With FAST, and you test the functionality you have to just develop, the test cases. So you run the test cases in kind of automated DAST, and you're not testing the whole application. Yeah? And of course, at the end, we deploy something somewhere, right? SAST, I do with my source code. So it's not in production. No, it's the source code. It's there where I have the source code. DAST is many times done of a production-like environment, right? Who does DAST, runs the DAST in production? Most time people don't do it because all the bogus data you get in your database. And even, strictly speaking, there is a problem with the Netherlands Bank and GDPR when you mangle your production data with test data. Oops. So yeah, so you have a production-like environment. They're never the same. And then this is the problem, where's my production environment? How do we test this? Because it's never the same. There is this OSINT. So you look outside with open source intelligence services, what you know about the service, what I can find also in it. Yeah? So that gives you a more holistic approach of your whole application. Kind of spoiler. Is it one or the other? You have the combination of what? So what you have to understand is when you do an assessment on whatever you assess, the more time you have, and the bigger the scope, the deeper is what you know, understanding, right? So the more you know, the more you see about the application, the more issues you will get, because you see more. But when you see more, you know more, you will have less false positives. Does it make sense? It will in a second. So, this sentence is easy, right? And that's the same. I always compare software writing with writing a book. It's creative. There's a story. I'm from object orientation, so everything has a purpose and attributes, like people. Not every people have purpose, but anyhow. So you have a sentence. And we said the earliest thing you can start is when you write code, but you have the context of the sentence. How can it determine what is good or wrong? For example, there's a spelling mistake in there. I hope you noticed. This is very easy. I only need this one sentence. That's what I said. When you have a compiler, it says, this line does not compile. With security testing, you can underline. This is something very quick, right? I don't need a big scope. I can do it early. I can do it in my IDE. When I at the next one, then I need understanding what is happening. Can the big-found fox jump under a dog? This is the question. Is it theoretically possible to jump under something? And can a fox jump under the dog? So you have to understand about the height of the dog and the size of the fox and understand what is jumping meaning in this context of the sentence. Can a turtle jump in the reality of your application? Maybe it's a Spanish jumping turtle. I don't know. So you need to understand the context of application. And that's when you write a book or write a code, you have this one line you have to understand. You have the method. You have the file level understanding of your code. And that's very quick. But when you go beyond files, then it takes more time to get more depth, to get more understanding. Right? That's what I said. You need a different ways where you test. Because at the end, there's also a progress in your application, as it is in your book. And it's very nice if you get, not very nice, it's very sad when he gets killed by a car, but after he got killed by a car, he cannot jump anymore. So you need to understand more than one page. You need a chapter or you have to read the whole book. Nobody ever wrote a whole book in one go. You have different drafts and reviews for such errors. Wait a minute, this person appears, but he died 2 chapters earlier. Same with your application. Hey, we want to send this payment request, but there has not been any account yet. Stuff like this. Right? So you have to understand short level, high level, and different gradation. You need to understand what you not should do is finding issues. The purpose of doing SAST, DAST, IAST, whatever AST, is not on finding issues. It's measuring the health and the quality, the status of your application as it goes. Like your patient in the hospital. Right? It's your child, it's your software. You rely your business on it. So you want to know at any time how healthy it is. And the more probes I put in it, the more information I have. And the more alerts I get. But also understand, is this a problem or not? It's the experience what you have. As I said, and also another thing, when you want to be the best in something, you don't start to compete at a world record, because you never will succeed. The first thing is, you have to be energized, you have to be willing to be better. You look where you are, the world record you put on your mirror, and that's what you aim for. You won't maybe not reach. Again, it's not about finding everything, it's reducing the risk and increasing the quality. I hope I have demystified some of the asked problems. Questions? I have answered all the questions. Yeah.
One question may sound stupid.
No, there are no stupid questions.
Are you implying that ideally companies should implement all of the ASTs?
Yes. So the question was, should I imply that people should, companies should implement all of them? Yes, but it doesn't have to be a vendor. I work for vendor. It doesn't have to be a vendor. It can be open source. It's what the difference is not how we write software. We always should ahead. Oh, this is it's a desktop application, so I write it. We don't need security. There is a way how to write software, and when you're a developer and you're paid to write software, you are a professional developer. And from a professional developer, I expect professional quality software. I don't care where the software lives. By default, there is a way how we do it. The difference is on the risk of the software. How much do we invest in proving that it is good, right? That's the difference, not how we write. I have seen people writing, concatenating queries, user input, say, this is a test application. I don't do it. Why? Because it's against my nature. The best way to write software is quality software, and I don't care where it lives, because you never know where you find your own software. Write it good. And the input investment in quality testing is depending on the business risk and abilities, right? And then raise the bar. Thanks for the question. Yes? Yeah?
All right. About software composition analysis.
Sorry.
About software composition analysis. SCA.
Yeah?
Yeah. How can we scale the same level? Like we want to protect our applications to use vulnerable compositions. So how can we scale this protection? Because nowadays the developers can use whatever they want.
One problem, so how can we scale SCA as a software composition analysis? Yeah. One easy answer would be, hey, there's tooling for it, right? When you create, the question is, when can you start with software composition analysis? The moment you have a build file, right? When the build file is changed, hey, anything has changed on the libraries. I have seen toll gates, right? Security people in the past come from process, so we have the toll gates. From test to development, you need a static code analysis. From development to acceptance test, you need a dynamic. It doesn't work because it's continuous development, right? So when you can start with SCA, that's why I call it the first, when the moment you create your project. You're not importing anything, so it should be good. But hey, there's a Java version already, or .NET version. So the moment you create your project, you can start with the first testing. and the scalability of this. And that's the problem, because I have seen DevOps, and I call it the development Wild West, because we are living in a time that is very developer-centric. Developers think, oh, I'm the most important person in this company because I write the software. And then you have dev and ops, and I'm an ops guy because I configure servers. It's like, wait a minute. Have you ever seen a live server, like bare metal? No, I'm going to do DevOps. You configure servers. Oh, then maybe I shouldn't say that in public, but anyhow, I don't care. I'm old. When you're old, you care less. Am I right? Oh, you're much younger than me. Anyhow, so when you scale it, it's developer. Yes, there's I think it was the guy from Amazon, Bozo. What's his name? Yeah. Jeff. Bezos. Oh, name is not. I'm really, really bad with names. So he said there's a free choice of technologies as long as it's Java or .NET. And the same is for your team. I have seen small startups. They use every technology from everybody they ever hired to work in their project. This is not maintainable. When you are a company that bought a lot of other companies, and then you have legacy code, it's different. But when you start them, you have to clean, you have to limit to make it manageable. The management, I said, you want to need knowledge, what you have, you have to want to have it manageable. When you have everything, you cannot manage everything, right? So how you can scope this? Have a list of libraries they are allowed to use, for example. And of course, when you take rights from somebody, they complain if they use the right or not. But with something with privileges and rights comes responsibility. Say, okay, wait a minute, you want to have this, then you have to verify this responsibility that is secure enough. Supply chain cleanliness. So you have your proven repository of dependencies. When you have something new that has to be added or updated, let them do it. You want to have it? You have to work for it. Yes?
You just mentioned that it's recommended to use SAST, DAST, and IAST and SCA and everything you showed. What is the added value of DAST, assuming that you deployed IAST?
So the question is, as I said, I suppose to use as much tools as I can, SAST, DAST technologies, and what would be the benefits of DAST over IAST? As I said, for example, DAST is running quicker. DAST has dependencies on platforms, so you cannot run IAST on everything. When you do it in your test environment, as I said, you have to have DAST and SAST already working to make IAST practically implementable. I know where you come from, so we can spar about it some other time. But yes, there is another level to understand how IAST work. And I have seen people, we use IAST, so it's quicker. But is it the passive or the active IAST you're talking about? And to what level can you use it? So DAST has its own right, because then for this context, maybe it's just the right thing to prove the quality as good as not.
So doing everything right, you are doing SC, SAST, everything. So how do you manage?
As I said, do it smartly. You understand? So the way we write code has to be a good way. We want to have the verification depending on the code criticality. So maybe for this one application, it's a desktop application that runs on internally, it's enough to have a SAST test, but DAST does not even work for such a thing. It's a desktop application, right? If this my business critical application, maybe there's even live threat, then I need every testing that I can have, maybe manual testing. I know, for example, people who do what's called MIE scanner, right? There's this big magnetic field that put people in. What could possibly go wrong? You could get fried. They do they take ANSI and remove libraries they don't want you to use. Because human life at risk, it's the highest risk we have. Right? So they will do fully testing. They have also, I think, almost 1 hour on code quality testing for development. I said you should be able to do everything, but use it smartly where you need it. And with these days, with our build integration, if you've done it once, you can do it twice. How you scale it is you have security champions, right? I've seen it before. Unfortunately, I have seen people abusing security champions. Those are those who have gone through all the findings. So you're abusing security champions to push off everything your security don't want to do. They will be happy. No. Their developers are security interested, so use them as their best. For example, as I said, with this dashboard and overview, I see that this one project has suddenly more cross-site request forgeries. So you can say, hey, security, what changed? They say, oh yeah, we upgraded our front-end library. What all projects use the same front-end library? Oh, you haven't updated yet? Wait. Bring them together. Think about, can we find a solution? Do we have to upgrade it? And can we find a solution that not everybody gets the rate in cross-site request forgeries, but we can maybe have an architectural solution that we keep it low. You want to manage the trend and not interact on every independent vulnerability. That's why we make manageable. And be smart on resources, right? You cannot solve the whole world. Another thing is also, in German we have the nice saying of Zuckerbrot und Peitsche. It's sugar bread and a whip. And what I mean is when you have a team that does everything good, you give them sugar bread. Because you make their life easier. You do everything right, so I don't have to be too hard to you. But those who are resistant to learn, I have the whip. And you have to play with that. You can earn, because developers are there to develop. With everything you do, you have to tell them, hey, we are not here to show the insecurity, because everybody who is here in security, we are not in security, right? We are not securing anything. We are showing what is insecure. So we go to developers who hopefully are bright about their work and say it's not good. That works fine. So what you need is being the mentor and teacher and trainer and say, hey, really good what you did. I help you to make it even better. And when you listen, I make it easy for you. And if you want it the hard way, you can get the hard way. Yeah?
One more question. Final question.
Who dares the final question?
Yeah, regarding the term supply chain cleanliness and maybe the wider concept of third-party risk management. In case like some companies, especially startup, want to scale up very quickly, let's not develop anything in-house, let's start using SAST, let's start using serverless, let's start using
everything.
Kind of simple infra. But then they depend on these SaaS provider and vendors to patch their own infra. And now it's less easy to export.
What is the question?
So the question is how to achieve the trade-off between doing everything in-house, especially what you are saying now, SAST,
Yeah.
So now we have a lot to manage.
Yeah, so the thing is, when you start clean sheet, you're a startup, everything has to be...
How much to own in-house and how much to delegate to outside?
Many years back, I was in a conference in Orange County, I remember, because I had a very good conversation. And there was a CEO or CTO of a startup. And he had a vulnerability, and it cost him a lot of money. But he said, time, it's more money than I had to pay. Because I'm still here, and I paid my fine because I was first. My competitors didn't pay the fine because they were second. And they're not there anymore. So yes, it's the question for, are you right? And that's a big problem with our guidance and guardians. If you want to be the first, can you negligate the risk? Because you don't have the money to do everything at once. Security, even when it's an existing company, you're not implementing everything at once. It's raising the bar, looking where are you on the quality aspect, and then raising the bar, constant improvement. That's what you need. But yes, when you are from the ownership, and that's what we see in a car factory. Cars didn't become more safe because everyone was like, oh, our dear people, they could be die when they have a car accident. No, they become more secure because of government regulation. And that's what we see now in Europe also. We have government regulation about what risks you are allowed to take with what data. If you use data, you have responsibilities, and the responsibility demand you to be careful with it. And otherwise, the startup have a very short lived, not because they are second, but just because they did something stupid. Yeah, so jump off the cliff, but not all at once. Thank you.